On today's episode of the K-Swap 240 presented by Turn 14 Distribution,
it's a K-tuned kind of day around here, which means we're going to use a bunch of their goodies to figure some stuff out on the intake side of the motor.
As you may have noticed, we are back at the shop. No more Enviado, and that means we have quite a bit of stuff to do ourselves. I put together a list of all the things that I think need to be completed to get this car running. And today we're going to start off on the whole intake side of the engine. I want to figure out our pulley setup. I want to try to fit the power steering pump down below with one of the K-tuned power steering relocation kits, and then figure out some of the cooling lines. So this is where our power steering pump would normally reside on a front wheel drive setup. Thanks to K-Tune's power steering relocation kit, we are going to move it down below here and see if it's gonna work for us down in this area, and we're still gonna be able to build those baffles in, the wings, to add the capacity onto the oil pan. So I'm gonna bolt this up right now and figure out how everything comes together. I think we did this once already, DP, haven't we?
It feels familiar, but I was asleep during the last K-Swap, so.
I just bolted these two brackets together, and I'm not even sure you're allowed to do this, but I've moved our power steering bracket up one notch on the bracket that mounts to the actual motor. I don't know if there's clearance enough, but we're trying to get it up as high as possible, so we're just gonna try. Sometimes you gotta blaze trails, even though I know John at K-Tune may not have designed it to be held in place only by 3 bolts.
Well, he gave you a lot of holes to choose from there, so I'm thinking
maybe. That's what I'm thinking, hopefully. But what I already like is, see, this area here, we may be able to add the capacity that we wanted right in this area, because I think this pump's just gonna sit like right around here. So that's already a good sign. So we'll just tighten these up and see how our setup looks. So from down here, I can already tell we have a ton of clearance on this side for our extra capacity in the oil pan, which is an awesome thing. The outlet tube on the power steering pump points downwards. Thankfully, K-Tune's kit comes with one that you can rotate. So we'll be able to just rotate this up. And this is actually the hose and setup for the power steering here. So I'll be able to I may even be able to fit this. I don't know if it's going to be long enough. Actually, you know what? This is going to dump on me. I'm not going to do this.
Peek right in your face, yeah.
Yeah, so anyways, we'll just need a hose to go down to here, which will be awesome. And then we'll have to figure out a custom line to go from here to the power steering rack. But man, I think we can call this a success. Like, this is gonna work. For our high pressure line, K-Tune has done a great job in terms of adding a AN fitting adapter. This will bolt right onto there, and we may be in luck because this is the normal K-Swap power steering line. So if we can fit, by some stroke of chance, if this fits into the Nissan power steering rack, then we're just going to be able to use this line. We can shorten this up, redo the fitting, and just make it work. So that means we're actually not going to have to go out and have a custom line made. And it's a quick little short route to the fitting here, and by the looks of it, it may just work. We'll see.
Pete's little vaping pipes ready to go in.
This is not a
tiny hobbit pipe.
This is our return line. Fitting here, and if I can get it in the hole. This will not go in the hole. And here's a quick pro tip why it won't. Always check to see if there's another O-ring in there, because odds are there is. And now this should fit like a champ.
If you do that with an oil filter, it gets real messy real
Yes,
fast.
I have actually done that.
This would have got messy too.
There you go. Look how much better that is now. As luck would have it, the K-Tune supplied rubber hose here It's the same diameter as the Nissan one, which means, look at that. We've got ourselves a return line ready to go. I was worried this was gonna be problematic, but I think it was already loose.
Came out like butter.
It did come out like butter, and the reason it came out like butter is because the other side was lopped off.
Yeah.
There was a hard line that I cut. And, well, it looks like our thread pitch is good, but this had this whole O-ring set up in a flare. So I'm not sure. We'll have to talk to some experts on this, but looks like we've got a winner here. Our line is a little bit too long, but we're gonna use some Vibrant tools to take this K-tuned line apart and shorten it, which we can do here, finally. This is one way to get a perfectly clean, straight cut. Yeah! Oh, yes. I think we may have bitten off a little bit more than we can chew here. I thought these were just like simple braided lines, but they've got this plastic coating inside, which I'm pretty confident is for the high pressure system. So right now I'm gonna abort this because I can't seem to get this side of the fitting off of this hose. I'm gonna take this to a hose shop and see if they can take this little fitting off there, put it on here, splice this together, and we will have our power steering line. But the moment that we do have that, this whole system will essentially be complete. So the next thing we're gonna move on to here is bolting up the alternator and seeing if I can get the stock routing on the belt to work here for us.
Look what winter does to all these pulleys and nuts and bolts. It's just a rusty mess. What are you gonna do to clean these up, PT?
I've got a parts cleaner. I'm gonna give it a go after. Once we get this all assembled and mocked up, then will come the beautification part of this build, and that's gonna be taking a lot of this apart, washing it, spraying it, using a lot of degreaser to make this look at least somewhat pretty, because I don't think I can run this car with a crank pulley that looks like that.
She's ugly right now. She's ugly. Just when I was saying all your pulleys look skanky and rusty, you've got a solution.
Ta-da! This is actually the K-tuned auto tensioner. It replaces the factory one, which is crusty and old, and we don't want to take a chance on that. And the next item is we need a pulley up here. This is the factory pulley. It is crusty, and our big problem is, which I'll show you in a second, which we may run into, is when you bolt the S2000 manifold on, it's gonna be super close to this. So, in order to streamline things and add a little bit of adjustability, we are gonna be running the K-tune, I think this is called the EP3 pulley, and the beauty of this, not only is that it looks much nicer, but it also has an adjustable pulley. So if we need to move this out of the way just slightly, we may be able to do that.
That sensor, not looking very happy.
No! TPS is gonna be a problem. It hurts so much to have to go back to this.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So ugly.
But on the upside, it does give us the clearance that we need for this damn sensor.
It does have
Like
that
I can
clearance.
just notch this a little bit here. The whole point of this pulley was to give us a little bit of space to move this whole pulley up and out, but because of that, it blocks this sensor plug, which is which is the biggest problem. The downside with this guy here is, I mean, I can cut this off. What I'm gonna do is take this aluminum off here, so that'll give us a little bit more space, because otherwise you can see you're gonna have a hard time fitting a coupler onto here.
Look at this dirty old belt, PT. What are you doing?
We could not find a new belt. Apparently all the parts stores here don't stock these. Who would have thought an Acura RSX belt was not readily available? But I think we're gonna be okay in terms of length. At first I thought we would need a shorter belt length, but it looks like this may work. So I'm just gonna test fit this up.
So that is an OE belt that actually looks like it fits.
Yes, it does. There you go. Nice. So
Well, that
no
makes it
need to
easy.
go find a custom one. As you can see, it's in place and it's gonna work. So we're moving on to our thermostat housing, and this is the factory piece. It bolts up to the block like this, and as you can see, our outlet is facing our engine mount, which is not good. So thankfully, K-Tuned has a product that they've produced for K-Swaps, which K-Swaps actually have the same problem as well. And what they have here is a swivel neck. So you'll unbolt the factory plastic housing here, you'll bolt this guy up, and you're gonna be able to rotate it whichever way. It's also a nice billet housing, of course, and has provisions for sensors, which we will end up using as well. So if you remember, our factory outlet pointed this way towards the engine mount, and now I think what we're gonna end up doing is something just like that. So I still need to get the coolant hoses, which we'll visit at a later episode, but now we're gonna move on to some of the plumbing that needs to go into this thermostat housing here, and this intake manifold adapter plate that we have from K-Tuned. Here we have our K-Tuned K24 intake manifold adapter, and as you can see, we have a fancy K-Tuned hose that connects us to our water housing. And the one modification that we're gonna have to do up here is there is a spot for a hole, and usually what they do is they provide a bolt with a bit of a spring that you would bolt onto here, onto a regular intake manifold that would hold this in place. But because we've got this adapter, we're gonna have to drill this out and drill into the actual head and tap it as well to put a bolt into there to make this all fit together. First step, drill press time. Drill the actual adapter. Uh-oh, we've got no power. And we are through. Now we've got ourselves a fine hole.
Now for the low stress job of just drilling a hole in the cylinder head.
Yeah.
No big
And
deal.
making sure that hole lines up here, right?
Yeah, just give her.
Going. Slow and steady. We'll win this race.
Time to thread that hole. You get
Slowly
one
and
shot at this
carefully,
speed,
I
too.
know.
Don't mess it up. No pressure. Don't mess it up.
Don't worry me here. I'm already nervous about doing this. And it's a pretty long bolt,
It is,
too,
yeah.
which is kind of scary. Well, I'm gonna call that a success. Looks like our intake manifold adapter is on. Now we're gonna move on to the back side of the engine, where you would find this housing. And what we are replacing it with is another K-Tuned unit, a billet housing. And the main advantage of this is obviously it's gonna be pointing in the right direction. So this would be pointing out to the firewall. This points out this way, which is ideal. So now we can just run a hose that's gonna come off of here out that way.
I know you're gung-ho to install that water neck PT, but looking at the clock, I gotta go get my kids.
I guess this
End of
could
the
be a
day.
wrap. This is a wrap for today. So, as always, thank you for watching. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up. Post some comments in terms of how you think this swap is coming along. As always, check out our e-store for some Speed Academy swag. Anything you purchase does help maintain this place and helps us make more videos.